to try to make sense of the San Francisco 49ers season. My dear friend Mike Silver. Mike, the 49ers have fallen and they're not getting up. I don't know. I don't think they're getting up. I don't think there's anything that we can do to help them here. So we wanted you to join the show to give us a little breakdown of what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and really what the vibes are for the 49ers after really a bizarre year for Kyle Shanahan and company. So first, just how are you doing, bud?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm definitely doing better than the 49ers. And, the math is still out there because it's the NFC West. And if you look at Kyle Shanahan's history these last few years, they have gone on some improbable late season runs. But yeah, the eye test is telling us this is more like 2020, the last time they were coming off a Super Bowl defeat to the Chiefs. And everybody talks about Super Bowl hangover, but, I started talking about bad vibes summer in July and August. But really, I think this goes back to you're Kyle Shanahan. You just basically shut down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for most of the Super Bowl. You decide you want to fire Steve Wilks, your defensive coordinator, after one season. That's cool. You're in the big chair. We trust you, I guess. But it definitely looked scapegoatish, and I think Kyle knew that when he did it. And it was this whole, we're going to go back to basics. I'm going to get Nick Sorensen. We're going to run that wide 9 with the Seattle 3 behind it the way I like it. And so that was the start of it. You had the horribly drawn out contract disputes with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams, which were avoidable. You had crazy stuff like Ricky Pearsall getting shot in broad daylight in San Francisco. Thankfully, he's okay. And you have obviously had a ton of injuries, but I would argue the vibes have been bad for a long time, and they're trying to summon something now, and it is not there at all.
Obviously, other than injuries, Mike, right? Like you can point to a litany of injuries that have ruined really Kyle Shanahan's season, the 49ers season. It's hard to win without your star players. I'm more focused on the defense, though, and you mentioned it in passing when you said that. So Steve Wilks fired as defensive coordinator last year. They were the number 5 total defense in all of football. Then Shanahan goes and hires his own guy, Nick Sorensen. It wasn't talked about a lot because we're like, oh, they just have a good defense, and it's just going to get swept under the rug. But I would point to that as probably the number one thing that I'm not going to let Kyle Shanahan slide on, because it was sort of, I didn't agree with it in the moment. What is the feel in the building? Can he survive this? I mean, what's happening on that aspect of it?
I mean, probably not, right? And I don't know that that's fair to Nick Sorensen, because what Kyle Shanahan really did was he said, I just want to go back to how we had it with D'Amico and Robert Saleh. But that flies in the face of everything Kyle Shanahan stands for on the offensive side. And yes, I will draw attention to my book, The Why Is Everything, which is out there, which is about how Kyle Shanahan and that whole crew of coaches that he was with in Washington, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Raheem Morris, Mike McDaniel, their whole thing is always innovate, always get ahead. And I think he does that on the offensive side at the highest level. But it's a weird thing to say, we just want to go back to our thing. And so, not to get too scheme heavy, because I clearly don't understand it on the level that you do, and let alone these coaches. But my understanding is you had the kind of classic Seattle 3 defense under Saleh in 2017 and 2018. A lot of people wanted him fired. And then they said, let's add the wide 9 front and combine it. And look, they had rookie Nick Bosa, healthy D Ford, DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead in their prime in the inside, and then Greenlaw and Warner young, chasing people around behind it. So yeah, it looked unbelievable. They went to the Super Bowl. But if your whole thing is always innovate, and the league is doing that constantly, it seems weird to me that you'd be like, let's just go back to our basic scheme with Nick Sorensen. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we saw with the Eagles a year ago what happens when you have an organization that thinks it has a lot of talent with high standards and a recent history of success, and it goes off the rails. Nick Sirianni was lucky to keep his job, and he got 2 new coordinators shoved down his throat, and it's worked out better. But yeah, I mean, special teams, again, you have Brian Schneider, who was a great special teams coordinator for Pete Carroll for years, a coach who values special teams, who told me that was a way for us to express our identity and who we are. Now he's with Kyle Shanahan, a coach who has literally said publicly, yeah, my philosophy on special teams is just don't screw it up so we can win it on offense and defense, and has said things like, yeah, we don't fake punts because that's what teams do that need to steal a possession. Basically, like, that's gimmick crap for the, low life teams. And so if that's your special teams philosophy, it'll get blamed on the special teams coach. But that, again, is something you can point to the head coach when you're assessing.
Well, I'm glad you brought up just the way Kyle Shanahan is viewing all of this top to bottom, because, you see a lot of fans frustrated about the way this season has gone, and you have people going, well, maybe this will be it for Kyle Shanahan. Maybe the front office, maybe the owner is going to say this isn't good enough. We're not getting there. What's your take when you start hearing people bring an argument up that Kyle Shanahan should be fired?
Look, Jed York fired Jim Harbaugh after 4 incredibly successful years, 3 NFC Championship game appearances, a near Super Bowl victory, and it was trending downward that 4th year, and it was getting weird, and it was not a pleasant workplace environment for the owner. So I understood why Jed York made that move. But if you make that move and then you trot out Jim Tom Sula and get up on the podium and say, it's going to be like Steve Kerr. Now, I take that one personally, as you know, because that's my boy from growing up. But narrator's voice, it was not like Steve Kerr. It was like me trying to guard Steve Kerr on the youth playground, right? It was bad. So, I think after that, and then Chip Kelly for a year, Kyle was like, Jed was like, I'm going to find a coach and I'm going to support him and stick with him. And he was so good, Jed, after 2017 and 2018 did not go well with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch about, you know what, we're doing this for the long haul. We're staying the course. And year 3, he was rewarded and nearly won a championship. And it's been really, really good. So I don't think Kyle Shanahan is going anywhere, nor do I think he should. Coaches do get in situations where teams get tired. This team has been through a lot emotionally, a lot of near misses. They have a lot of older players or players who have a lot of wear and tear, who are proud and decorated and have been through a lot together. Kyle is a coach who wants things done on his terms, within a game, within a season, the way things play out. And when things do play out on his terms, it usually goes great. And when they don't, it sometimes takes them a while to adjust. There's also something going on, teams age out. The injuries have been brutal, and that happened to them in 2020. There's also something else going on. And Chase, I kind of want to ask you about this, because I have found, as a media person, over the last 3+ decades, the hardest thing for me to understand when I'm trying to predict how a team's going to do in a given season is that internal chemistry. Because football, I think, is different. It's not like chemistry matters to me so much because you're asking your arm to bend back, at a 270-degree angle and all sorts of irrational things to be great together. And there has to be a driving force of togetherness that propels you. And that's hard to quantify year to year. And so more about that, obviously, haven't been in so many locker rooms and haven't been a part of so many teams. Something has seemed off to me, and I've struggled in ways to express it since the spring, really. But the vibes don't seem right. And I want to attack that a little more as a journalist, but it doesn't seem like that is the same to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you have a bunch of star players that are hurt in and out of the huddle, in and out of the offense, in and out of the defense, the team, you're constantly like shuffling guys in and out that maybe they haven't been in that certain position, like leadership position, right? Fred Warner just came out and said he's playing on a fractured ankle. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, stuff like that. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I think the Ricky Pearsall getting shot was crazy, right? And then obviously the contract disputes between Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk have a lot to do with that, especially because those are the two leaders, like the leaders on offense. So I think it's a lot to do with that. And to Diana's point, I think it's idiotic if Kyle Shanahan's on the hot seat. Like when I look at coaching and who's going to be up next in their interviews or who's going to get fired, like who are they going to replace them with? Right? Like, and that's what teams look to. Like, who's better right now out there than Kyle Shanahan? And quite honestly, I can't tell you.
I will pause you and say Jim Tomsula is available, to my knowledge, if they want to go back.
We do not want to go back. I'm sure 49ers fans do not want to go back. I have a question about the quarterback.
He's a great guy,
Brock
Get
Purdy.
Tomsula that.
Yeah.
So Brock Purdy's up for an extension this offseason. How do you think this year playing out for him, has it affected his leverage? Like, is he still viewed as the guy that's going to get potentially $60 million in that locker room by, Lynch, by Shanahan?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I think Kyle decided that long ago, like Christmas 2 years ago, honestly, when he was thrown in. But, so we're presuming that Kyle Shanahan will be back, which unless he doesn't want to be, I would assume is we all agree. I think they've decided Brock Purdy's that guy, but this is a new world, right? And so instead of having this collection of highly paid in their prime all-stars and a quarterback on the cheapest rookie deal ever, you're going to have, and whether it's 60 or not, I don't know. I would just urge the 49ers, based on recent history, figure it out and do it quick. Like, do it early. Don't make this a thing that drags out based on how that's affected them. But yeah, I think Purdy will be reasonable. I think they'll come up with a number, and I think they'll pay him. So the issue is, and we knew this was coming, and that's why I also talked about Last Dance in relation to this season. Some of these guys are not going to be there because of the economics of what I just enunciated, and some of them are just aging out. And football's brutal, and it happens fast, and it's not always chronological age. Like, is Deebo Samuel declining as a player, even though he's pretty young? I don't know, man. He's taken a lot. The way he plays, he's taken a pounding. That's possible. Is George Kittle, who's been so good, is he in his prime? Is he descending? Same thing. Not old, but has taken a lot of hits because of the way he plays. Kyle Juszczyk, they may take a pay cut after last year. Hargrave, who's on IR, is old. Ayuk, they paid. He's coming off an ACL. Trent Williams, they paid, but he's pretty old. Warner and Greenlaw, who they hope to get back, who's such a big part of their identity, whose contract is up. They're not old, but they play so physically, and Greenlaw's a little undersized. Hufanga is basically, probably gone because he's so beat up at a young age. It's going to be a different thing. Yeah, and Brock Purdy's going to be asked to do more, and his game is to not try to do more. The whole beauty of Brock Purdy is like, I'm not trying to do the Josh Allen stuff. That would be stupid. I'll move and I'll extend plays, but I'm doing what Kyle's offense dictates. And that's why one reason why Kyle loves him so much. And he's great. I think Brock Purdy's mentality, skill, I think he's awesome. But the whole key with him is don't try to be Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's not you. And so he's going to have to thread that needle of not doing that, but also being a guy who makes so much money that you kind of have to be really, really good for them to win.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.